Today, I'm going to show you how to create these visuals on Power BI. It's called a traffic light visualization, and the red colors are determined by the values on one of these columns. In this case, I'll be using the death cases ratio to determine the color of the indicator. So let's jump into the report and show you exactly how this works. First and foremost, I will be connecting to my SQL database. I made a previous video to show you how that works. You're going to need two credentials: the server name. In this case, I'll be using my local Express server, and the database name, which is optional, but I recommend you use it. And I'll be using import connection method, but also I would need a SQL query that is already pre-written in my database. You can see the code that I'll be using. I'm selecting continent. I blurred out location, date, population, total cases, total death from the COVID table, and I'm grouping by the continent, and I'm ordering by the second column, which is the dates, or probably use order by continents in this case. So that will be column 1. So I'll copy this code and paste it in the advanced option in Power BI and connect. So this is what I generate from my code, and I'll be loading this up. Query number 4. So what am I trying to populate? First and foremost, I click on the continent. It automatically pops out the map visualization, and then I click on the population. So from the continent, now I'm going to increase the bubble size just to see what's going on here. Increase the bubble size. So what I have displayed in this visual is the continent by population. From what I can see in the bubble sizes, Asia has the highest population, but I know that Africa is supposed to have the second highest population, but in this case, it doesn't. So this data set has some issues with it, but we're going to pretend like that doesn't exist. So let's create a table visual, selecting the table visual at the bottom, because that's where we're going to indicate the traffic light visual eventually. And I'm using the same information. The continent would be on the first column, followed by the population, and then the total cases of COVID-19, and then total deaths. So what am I trying to generate here? I need a traffic light indicator to showcase COVID numbers below 1% death rate. So I'm comparing the death count and the total cases count in a percentage formula, and any value less than 1% death rate should be indicated with a green color, and any value above 1% death rate is indicated by a red color. That's what I'm trying to showcase here. So first and foremost, I'll need to calculate the new measure that gives me a ratio of deaths to cases. How do I get that done? I'm just going to name this measure death ratio, which will be divide. The numerator value would be the total deaths. So that will be the sum of total deaths in query 4 close, comma. The denominator would be the sum of total cases in query 4. Do I need an alternate result? No, I don't. So I'll click on enter. So I have my new measure generated here. It's called death ratio. So if I click on the death ratio, I have a new column generated that shows me the death ratio. To convert this into percentage, I click on the percentage icon in the formatting group. So basically, I have 6 continents with a null value. The null value, just checking out this data, I can tell that the null value is the total world population. Remember, this data set is from 2021 and it showcases COVID-19 numbers based on death, vaccines, etc. I will leave a link to the dataset in the description of the video. It takes you to my GitHub account where you can have full access to the dataset and play with this. So to make this a little bit cleaner, I will eliminate the null value, the null row, right? Which I already assume is the value for the world population. So how do I get that done? Open the filter and continent, remove the blanks, select all and remove blanks. So the blanks is excluded. To make this a little bit cleaner, I will use a comma in each of these columns. Population column, I put a comma. Total cases column, another comma. Total death column, another comma. So that makes sense, right? So what we can see here in Africa, population of 213 million. Like I said, this isn't the correct value, but we're just going to pretend like it is. So 213,000 African population, and the total cases of COVID-19 at that time period was 4 million, and the total death was 100,000, which gave a 2.54 death rate. And then same thing up here happens with Asia with a population of 1.4 billion, which we know isn't correct because China and India alone are about 1.4 billion each. So these numbers aren't accurate, but for the purpose of this presentation, let's pretend like they are accurate. So let's jump into the flags straight. To create a flag or an indicator, a traffic light column based on the death ratio, we use a unique character in Power BI. And to get this done, I will create a new column and I'll call the column indicators. The unique character code to generate indicators is UNICHAR, UNICHAR, and the number is 11044. Just keep that number in mind. It's one of those things that you just have to memorize, or you can Google search it and find this information online. So it's unique character 11044. And check this out. Once I include the new column with the unique character, it showcases black indicators. So these black indicators can be conditionally formatted depending on the death ratio column. So to get that done, I click on the drop down arrow in the visualization pane under the indicators, down, and I go to conditional formatting, font colors, second option, and I need this to be based on the death ratio measure. So I click on the death ratio. If my first value is greater than or equal to 0% and less than, let's use 1%. So any value less than 1%, it has to be percent, is indicative of a, I'm not trying to make light of people losing their lives in COVID-19, but if 1% of the population lost their lives after infection, let's use a green to indicate that it's still healthy. It's a manageable situation. But in the case where over 1% of the population loses their lives to COVID-19, then we have to use a red indicator. So how do I get the conditional formatting done? If value is greater than or less than 1%, and I only have the less than options, so I would use less than or equal less than 100%. So basically the logic here is if the percentage value is greater than 1 but less than 100, then the flag should be a red. In the first case, if the value is greater than 0 and less than 1, which means less than 1% died due to COVID-19, then it's manageable. So we're going to use a green indicator. Let's see how that works. So when I click on the OK, we see what happens here. I would expand this for us to see. So we have the indicator lights determined by the value of the death ratio. So that's how you can use this nice visual to further show insights in your data set. You might come across this in your line of work, and I really hope this was helpful. Click on the like button, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. Thank you.